Thousands join Israeli judicial protests amid soaring tensions. Tensions are high in Israel as thousands of people join the ongoing judicial protests against the country's government. The protests are a response to what many see as an assault on the independence of the judiciary, which has been under increasing attack by politicians and political activists in recent years. The protests began in early March and have since grown in size and intensity, with people from all walks of life taking to the streets to voice their concerns. The protests have been peaceful so far, but there are fears that the situation could escalate if the government continues to ignore the protesters' demands. One of the main grievances of the protesters is the government's attempts to undermine the independence of the judiciary. Many people are concerned that the government is trying to intimidate judges and interfere in their work, which could have serious consequences for the rule of law in Israel. The protests have also been fueled by a series of high-profile corruption cases involving senior politicians and public officials. Many people believe that the government has not done enough to tackle corruption and that the judiciary is the only institution that can hold those in power accountable. The protesters are calling for a number of reforms, including the establishment of an independent commission to investigate allegations of corruption, the strengthening of the powers of the judiciary, and the appointment of judges based on merit rather than political connections. Despite the growing public pressure, the government has so far refused to engage with the protesters or to address their concerns. This has only served to fuel the anger and frustration of the protesters, who feel that they are being ignored by their elected representatives. The situation has been further complicated by the ongoing political crisis in Israel, which has left the country without a functioning government for more than 2 years. The lack of leadership and stability has only added to the sense of uncertainty and anxiety that many Israelis are feeling. The protests have received widespread coverage in the Israeli media, with many commentators expressing their support for the protesters and their demands. There have also been calls for the international community to take notice of the situation and to put pressure on the Israeli government to address the concerns of the protesters. The protests are a clear indication of the deepening divisions within Israeli society, and the growing frustration and anger that many people feel towards their government. The government must take the concerns of the protesters seriously and work to address them if it wants to avoid a more serious crisis in the coming weeks and months. In conclusion, the ongoing judicial protests in Israel are a reflection of the growing frustration and anger that many people feel towards their government. The protests are a peaceful expression of the people's desire for change, and the government must take their concerns seriously if it wants to avoid a more serious crisis. If you like this video, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more international affairs videos.